The war on drugs was never actually about slowing down or stopping the import and use of illegal narcotics. It was about eliminating competition so that government agencies could generate handsome revenues by protecting their suppliers and running their own drug distribution business. It's called a monopoly. It's not okay for you to run drugs, but they can do it all day long. And as the joke goes, the only way marijuana can kill you is if somebody takes 25 pounds of it, throws it out of a CIA drug plane, and it hits you in the damn head. This is more true than it is funny. And then we have the infamous war on terror. It's not about stopping individuals or groups from inciting violence for political means. In fact, we already know that U.S. agencies have funded, trained, and armed the very terror groups that are supposedly on the FBI's terror watch list when they supported them in the takeover of Libya and in the attempt to take over Syria. So the question has to be asked, what are the purposes behind the ideological wars against drugs and terror really about? Well, since the real victims going back to the 1970s when the war on drugs was instituted by President Richard Nixon have been the millions of Americans incarcerated for victimless crimes and the billions of dollars seized without a trial and what is known as civil forfeiture, then it's fairly obvious who these wars were really focused against. And since the advent of the Patriot Act, which hasn't stopped a single terrorist or terror event following the terror attacks on 9/11, the ability of Americans to do as they please with their own money has been stymied in the government's attempt to monitor and regulate every single transaction individuals choose to conduct. But with the rise of cryptocurrencies and the new fears coming out that decentralized virtual money could actually start or magnify a financial crisis, Congress on May 25th submitted a bill making it illegal for anyone to have a medium-sized amount of cash, Bitcoin, or other currencies outside of a bank without telling the government how much you have, where you have it, and why you have it by filling out new federal forms. Individuals guilty of holding such assets beyond the pale of favored banking institutions will be subject to asset confiscation and imprisonment. What's that we hear about the land of the free? This bill, which was introduced on the floor of the U.S. Senate, is almost too ridiculous to believe. And what did they decide to name it? Combating Money Laundering, Terrorist Financing, and Counterfeiting Act of 2017. Remember guys, whatever these political parasites decide to name a bill, the result is almost always opposite to what they name it. And you can probably already guess its contents. Cash is evil, Bitcoin is evil. Now they've gone so far as to include prepaid mobile phones, retail gift vouchers, or even electronic coupons. Evil, evil, and evil. These people are certifiably insane and militant. Among the bill's sweeping provisions, the government aims to greatly extend its authority to seize your assets through civil asset forfeiture. Civil asset forfeiture rules allow the government to take whatever they want from you without a trial or any due process of law.
A tractor-trailer stopped for a traffic violation leads to a search and the discovery of large blocks containing almost $200,000 cash that officers keep on the suspicion that it's drug money. In fact, Interstate 40 has become a major profit center for Tennessee law enforcement, with officers stopping and often searching out-of-state vehicles.
Under civil forfeiture, you give law enforcement a direct and perverse incentive to go out and try to take as much property from citizens as possible.
It's a way to make money for your task force, honestly.
Well, you know, when you say make money, I guess it is a way for us to continue to fund our operation.
What we're doing, we're taking advantage of how the laws are, to use the money to be able to put back to fight the drugs. So everything's paid through seizures and fines.
So if these officers out on the interstate don't come up with cash, then they might lose their jobs.
That's a possibility, yes.
This new bill adds a laundry list of offenses for which they can legally seize your assets, all of which pertain to money laundering and other financial crimes. Here's the thing though, they've also vastly expanded on the definition of such financial crimes, including failure to fill out a form if you happen to be transporting more than $10,000 worth of monetary instruments. Have too much cash? Well, you better tell the government. If not, they're authorizing themselves in this bill to seize not just the money you didn't report, but all of your assets and bank accounts. They even go so far as to specifically name safety deposit boxes among the various assets that they can seize if you don't fill out the form. Yet another reason for storing gold, cash, and silver in an overseas safety deposit box. This is unbelievable on so many levels. It's crazy to begin with that these people are so consumed by the fact that someone has $10,000 in cash, but it's even crazier that they're threatening to take everything you own merely for not filling out a piece of paper without any due process whatsoever. Oh, and on top of civil asset forfeiture penalties, there are also criminal penalties. Right now, according to current law, they can imprison you for up to 5 years for not filling out the form. 5 years! But apparently that doesn't go far enough to protect us against evil men in caves halfway around the world. So this bill aims to double the criminal penalty to 10 years in prison. And if that weren't enough, this bill also gives them new authority to engage in surveillance and wiretapping, including phone and email, if they have even a hint of suspicion that you might be transporting excess money instruments. Usually, wiretapping authority is reserved for major crimes like kidnapping, human trafficking, and felony fraud. Now we can add cash to that list. And guys, it's not just government spy agencies you have to worry about. Banks in the US are already unpaid government spies required by law to fill out suspicious activity reports on their customers. Then Congress started expanding those requirements to include other businesses and industries that might come into contact with cash. Stockbrokers, casinos, currency exchanges, precious metals dealers, pawnbrokers, and the post office. According to law, Section 5312 of U.S. Code Title 31, those industries are also required to spy on their customers for the government. But under this new bill, they want to forcibly recruit even more unpaid spies, including any business which issues or redeems anything that's prepaid. Prepaid credit cards, prepaid phones, prepaid retail gift cards, prepaid coupons. So Amazon.com, which issues and redeems prepaid gift cards, will be required under this bill to file reports to the government. Heck, for that matter, TGI Fridays and Chuck E. Cheese will also become unpaid government spies, since they both issue and redeem prepaid vouchers. These senators aren't striking at the heart of ISIS. They're striking at the heart of the American people. Further, their bill wants to pull any business which issues cryptocurrency under the anti-money laundering regulatory umbrella. And here's where these people demonstrate that they have no idea what they're talking about. Nobody issues Bitcoin. There's no Bitcoin central bank. There's no chairman of Bitcoin who decides on a whim to increase the supply. Bitcoin is created automatically amounts that are predetermined by its code. It's software. So the Senate is essentially trying to force the Bitcoin core software to comply with money laundering regulations. How pathetically clueless. The bill also attempts to drop a major bomb on Bitcoin by including it in the list of monetary instruments that must be reported when entering or leaving the U.S. So theoretically, if you leave the U.S. with more than $10,000 in Bitcoin or some other cryptocurrency, you'd have to confess this fact to the authorities or otherwise face the aforementioned penalties, which would be prison time and civil asset forfeiture. And thus you have land of the fee, home of the slave. As you can see, this bill criminalizes or delegitimizes the most mundane and harmless financial activities, all under the guise of keeping us safe. And of course, nothing in this bill is about keeping people safe. ISIS could care less about forms and penalties. This bill is nothing more than another weapon in their ongoing war on cash and now cryptocurrency, which is essentially a war against you and me. So, tired of handing over your liberty to gain a little security yet? Like and share this video with everybody you know.